The courtroom was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock on the far wall, each second stretching into eternity. Dust motes floated lazily through the shafts of light streaming in from the tall windows, but all eyes were fixed on the tiny figure standing in the middle of the room. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, her dress a simple faded blue, her braids tied neatly with worn ribbons. She stood facing the judge, her voice trembling but firm. "Free my dad," she said, her gaze unwavering, "and I'll make you walk." The words hit the air like a thunderclap. Some people chuckled under their breath, others exchanged bewildered glances. A few scoffed openly. After all, the judge was in a wheelchair, paralyzed for years. What could a little girl possibly do? But no one laughed for long. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of hope, even in the darkest places, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little light in their life, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Now, let's continue. The girl's name was Amara, and she had never been inside a courtroom before. The air was cold, smelling faintly of old wood and paper. Every creak of a bench, every shuffle of feet, seemed magnified in her ears. But all she could see was her father, Marcus, sitting in the defendant's chair, wearing an orange jumpsuit that made him look like a stranger. His eyes met hers for a brief second, full of both love and sorrow. He hadn't wanted her here, hadn't wanted her to see him this way, but she had insisted. She knew today could change everything, or end it all. Marcus had been a construction worker, strong and proud, the kind of man who could fix anything with his hands. But after losing his job during the layoffs, bills piled up faster than he could pay them. One desperate night, he'd taken a delivery job from an old acquaintance, one that turned out to be transporting stolen goods. When police stopped him, the truth didn't matter. His record was clean, but the law was the law. Now, he faced years in prison, leaving Amara with no one but a sick grandmother to care for her. Judge Harold Benton was known for being firm but fair. A towering figure even seated in his wheelchair, his presence commanded the room. Years ago, a car accident had left him paralyzed from the waist down, ending his career as a competitive runner and altering the course of his life forever. Some whispered that he had grown colder since then, less willing to bend, less willing to believe in redemption. But as he looked at the little girl standing before him, something flickered in his eyes, a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Amara's bold words weren't a bluff. For months, she had been reading about new rehabilitation methods, experimental devices, and physical therapy techniques. She had even been helping her grandmother with gentle stretching exercises after a knee surgery, learning the patience and care it took to restore mobility. She believed, truly believed, that with enough dedication, even a man like Judge Benton could stand again. And in her child's heart, that belief was worth trading anything for, even her father's freedom. The courtroom murmured in disbelief. The prosecutor rolled his eyes. "Your Honor, this is clearly an emotional outburst. The child doesn't understand the gravity." But Benton raised a hand, silencing him. His gaze stayed locked on Amara, studying her small, clenched fists, the way she stood as if the weight of the world rested on her narrow shoulders. There was something in her voice he hadn't heard in years, unshakable hope. As the trial continued, evidence was presented, witnesses spoke, and legal arguments flew like arrows. Amara sat quietly, her small frame dwarfed by the wooden bench. She barely moved, except to glance at her father every now and then. He never smiled. He didn't want to give her false hope, but he couldn't hide the pride in his eyes. Finally, after hours of tense proceedings, the moment came for sentencing. The room seemed to hold its breath. Judge Benton began speaking, his deep voice steady, outlining the charges and the possible consequences. But then he paused. He looked at Amara. "Young lady," he said slowly, "you made me a promise. Do you still stand by it?" Without hesitation, she nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll make you walk." What happened next would be spoken of in hushed tones for years to come. Instead of immediately passing judgment, Benton ordered a recess. He called Amara and her father to his chambers. There, in a private conversation that no one else heard, something shifted. Maybe it was the way she explained her plan. Maybe it was the quiet conviction in her eyes. Or maybe it was the way Marcus swore he'd turn his life around if given the chance to be there for his daughter. Whatever it was, Benton's expression softened just slightly. Weeks later, Marcus walked out of jail, not because the charges had disappeared, but because the judge had given him a suspended sentence contingent on community service and good behavior. And true to her word, Amara visited Judge Benton twice a week at a rehabilitation center. At first, it was slow and grueling. The judge was skeptical, gruff, even irritable. But Amara never wavered. She encouraged him through every small movement, celebrated every inch of progress. One crisp autumn morning, under the warm light streaming through the rehab center windows, Judge Benton gripped the parallel bars and, with trembling legs, stood up. His eyes widened in disbelief. Across from him Amara beamed, tears glistening on her cheeks. He took a shaky step, then another. The therapist froze, and for a moment, the room was utterly silent, until Benton laughed, a deep, genuine sound he hadn't made in years. Back in the courtroom months later, he walked in unaided. Gasps filled the air. Amara and Marcus sat together in the front row watching. Benton took his seat, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And when his eyes met Amara's, he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so we can keep spreading hope and second chances to more people. And before you go, leave a comment telling us what you would have done if you were in Judge Benton's place. Your words might inspire someone else today.